Hi, this is Let's Talk About Myths, baby. I'm Liv, your host who's run out of clever ways to introduce herself. Now, I know I said I'd do all Pride episodes this month, but we do also need to cover the next Zodiac constellation. So today's episode is all Zodiac, but don't despair, there are more LGBTQ stories to come. Though, surprise, surprise, I'm learning the hard way that even though there are loads of stories featuring these characters in mythology, finding sources where they're told in enough detail is incredibly tricky. So I'm having a lot of trouble finding enough detail to give you stories. Let's get on that, actual academics that are way more knowledgeable and established than me. Research some of those and publish them so I can tell them to my podcast listeners. Damn! Anyway, that's all to say today we're doing the twins, Gemini, but next week will be another Pride-centric episode. Mini-myth, Zodiac constellations, Swans, eggs, and the twins, Castor and Polydeuces, Gemini. The story of the twins of Gemini begin with a story you know from past episodes. In fact, I likely mentioned these two in passing, knowing that I get to their story in detail sometime in the future. Well, the future is now. God, that was cheesy. You don't always have to say the things that pop into your head, Liv. Castor and Polydeuces are children of Leda. You remember Leda of fucking a swan fame? Leda is the wife of King Tyndareus of Sparta. The story goes that Zeus, appearing in the form of a swan, seduces Leda. We all know that's code, though. Whether she consensually had sex with a swan is not clear, but I'm willing to bet it wasn't wholly consensual because that's fucking weird. But hey, maybe Leda had a really freaky kink and we shouldn't judge her. It's just too hard to say. Regardless, one day Zeus appears to her as a swan and they have sex. They have sex, though, on the same day that she has sex with her own husband, Tyndareus. And the story goes that this was the reason she's impregnated by both men at the same time. I'm not sure the Greeks had the science entirely figured out by this point. When Leda finally gives birth, she births 4 children. 2 the children of Zeus, making them godly, and 2 the children of Tyndareus, making them boring old mortals. But wait, by birth, in this case, I don't mean like the regular women do. No, Leda fucking lays eggs. Sometimes just the 1 egg from Zeus, with the other kids born like normal, and sometimes 2 eggs. Either way, eggs, you guys. She lays eggs. But somehow, that's not the most important part of the story. Let's be honest, though, it should be. Anyway, the most important part of the story is the children who are either birthed like normal or hatch from the fucking eggs. Because, yeah, human babies hatch from the eggs. What a world. We all know already, but it's moments like this where I realize why I started the podcast. Eggs. 2 of her children you already know so well. Her daughters, Clytemnestra and Helen. Clytemnestra, who goes on to marry Agamemnon and have his children, who eventually teams up with her new lover, her husband's arch enemy Aegisthus, to kill her own husband. She's famous in her own right. And Helen, oh Helen, she who, whether by any fault of her own or not, contributes to the start of the most epic and famous war of Greek mythology and kind of the world. But this story isn't about these insane and badass sisters. It's about their brothers. Because of who one of the fathers is, 2 of the children are typically described as immortal, godly in some way. But who is mortal and who isn't, that varies greatly. So if you're interested, consider subscribing to my Patreon because I'm definitely doing an episode about these folks. Their stories are endless. In the version I'm telling today, though, Castor and Clytemnestra are mortal. They're the children of Tyndareus, and it's Polydeuces and Helen who are godly, the children of Zeus. All the same, the twins themselves, Castor and Polydeuces, are often referred to as sons of Zeus. Plus, they're twins, so who knows how it could work that they have different fathers. But again, they just didn't have the science down yet. Together, these boys are referred to as the Dioscuri, the striplings of Zeus. The twins, like their sisters, were around just before the Trojan War. But unlike Clytemnestra and Helen, their stories intertwine with those of other famous heroes and quests. Castor and Polydeuces helped in the Caledonian boar hunt with Jason and the other Argonauts, as well as the quest for the Golden Fleece. And think back to one of those earliest episodes of this podcast, where I told you about how awful Theseus was. It's her brothers, Castor and Polydeuces, who rescue Helen when Theseus kidnaps her. But that's just their early lives. The true trouble comes later. There's another set of twins, far less famous than the Dioscuri, but twins all the same. Their names are Idas and Lynceus, and they're cousins of Castor and Polydeuces. But I won't get into the family tree because it's confusing as fuck. If for some strange reason you want to know and understand it and learn a fuck ton of names you'll never need again, you can read about them in Robert Graves' Greek mythology. Right now, though, all you need to know is these other twins, Idas and Lynceus, are set to marry two sisters, Phoebe and Hilera. But before they can, along come the Dioscuri, Castor and Polydeuces. They also take a liking to these women, and they kidnap them, something, again, often phrased as carrying them off, which is a gross and weird way of saying kidnap. Castor and Polydeuces kidnap Phoebe and Hilera, and one might suppose rape them, because we're told the women give birth to sons of Castor and Polydeuces. As one might imagine, the men originally meant to marry Phoebe and Hilera, Idas and Lynceus, are not thrilled that their wives-to-be have been kidnapped by the Dioscuri and have already had children by them. And so, a rivalry forms between these two sets of twins. Meanwhile, Castor and Polydeuces continue on with their lives. It's not clear whether they stayed with Phoebe and Hilera. Sadly, it doesn't seem like it's relevant, other than to establish this rivalry between the Dioscuri and Idas and Lynceus. Ah, how important women were. Castor becomes a famous soldier, known for his skill in taming horses, and Polydeuces is the best boxer in all of Greece. They're the pride of Sparta, the golden children of the whole region, and they do nothing alone. The Dioscuri are always together. Idas and Lynceus are equally connected to each other, though not nearly as famous. How the two sets of twins get to this next point is confusing and varies greatly and in a not at all interesting way across the versions of the story. So all to say, there reaches a point in this rivalry where the two sets of twins are fighting one another. A version says that in this fighting, Polydeuces stabs Lynceus and Zeus strikes Idas with a thunderbolt, but not before Castor himself has been stabbed. Remember, it's only Polydeuces who's immortal. Polydeuces is absolutely inconsolable. He and his brother were closer than anyone can understand, and he cannot handle even the notion that he doesn't have his brother anymore. Yet there he is, holding the lifeless body of Castor. Zeus is watching, having struck Idas with the thunderbolt in an attempt to help his son, Polydeuces, and he pities the man, sobbing over his beloved brother's body. So, Zeus allows Polydeuces to share some of his godly immortality with his mortal brother. In exchange, with Castor restored to a kind of half-life, the twins will live half of their time beneath the earth in the underworld and half with the gods on Mount Olympus. It's said that because of their devotion to each other, Zeus places them in the sky as the constellation Gemini. I don't know when this happens because I thought they were living between the two places, but at some point, Zeus places them in the sky as the constellation Gemini, the twins. friends, thanks as usual for listening. These Zodiac stories can be quite the tales to tell. I say that mostly in preparation for next month's, which is, of course, Cancer, the crab, my own Zodiac sign. That one's just fun. Anyway, next week we'll return to Pride stories, and I do hope you enjoyed the story of Gemini. As usual, I'd be eternally grateful if you'd rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. Even if you don't listen there, a rating and review is infinitely helpful. I'd also like to announce that I now have my book list available. So if you have any interest in donating to this show, but you'd like to do it in the form of buying me books that I can use, or just books, now you can. Just head to my website, mythsbaby.com/book-donation. Or just mythsbaby.com and click on Want to Help. That'll get you there too. And that takes you to the instructions and a link for the list. As I mentioned, this will be through my local independent bookstore, Monroe's. It's one of the most wonderful and beautiful bookstores I've ever been to, and I can't wait to support them through you all supporting me with books. I mentioned the link on my social media last week, and so many of you have already bought me books. I'm unbelievably touched and honestly can't believe how wonderful you all are. I haven't picked them up yet, but Lord knows I am going to be posting pictures when I pick them up. Not all are available right now. And I'm so grateful. So I'll be adding more books soon so that there are more options, but there are still a few available for purchase now if you want to donate that way. The books are a mixture of those that will help with future stories and, well, ones that are mythological and I just straight up want. So do with that what you will. I think you could also pretty easily pick one yourself off of Monroe's website that I may not have found and put on the list myself. You just follow the instructions on the page I mentioned above earlier, and you should be able to adapt those instructions to whatever book you want. Anyway, if you choose to do that, to buy me a book at all, thank you. But as usual, if you can't or don't want to, I totally understand. Also, just a final note to say that this episode will definitely have a companion episode available to Patreon subscribers of $5 or more fairly soon, as well as last week's episode that's just a bit late. That's also coming soon, or I've already done it. We'll see. Thank you all again. You're magnificent. I'm Liv, and oh, how I love this shit.